So I was lucky enough a couple months ago to meet the voice actor for my favorite character in Hazbin Hotel, the character I am going to be talking about today in this video, and that is Angel Dust from Hazbin Hotel. So the voice actor for Angel Dust and the voice actor for Alistair were both in a convention close to me. I was able to get a picture with the voice actor for Angel Dust, have a little chit chat, make sure he knew that Angel Dust was my favorite character. And now I want to share my love of Angel Dust with you all. So if you like Angel Dust, and you like Angel Dust for a lot of the reasons I'm going to talk about today, you will have some book recommendations with characters in those books that share that trait or multiple traits that Angel Dust also has. So the first reason I like Angel Dust is because he's got that cheeky style and attitude about him. And for those who don't know, cheeky is kind of interpreted as being somewhat inappropriate, somewhat disrespectful, but done in a charming or endearing way. So it's a net positive in my opinion. That's how I take it when somebody's being cheeky. It's because it's charming, because it's endearing, because it's entertaining. It's usually enjoyable to see, hear, watch, read. So Angel Dust doesn't take too much seriously, especially when it comes to stereotypical good or heavenly things. Because for those of you who have watched the show, know that the plot is about trying to redeem a bunch of characters from hell so that they can enter heaven. But the problem is that heaven and those in heaven are often hypocritical. So Angel Dust is really good as a character to point out that hypocrisy through his attitude towards anything good or heavenly. He also has a very playful demeanor, which I enjoy, because being playful, he's usually down for lots of extroverted activities. And me not being an extrovert, I like to live vicariously through extroverted characters. Obviously, if by being extroverted, he's around other people, which sets him up for many social situations that are ripe for entertainment, banter, cheeky dialogue. All of the characters act a little bit as comedic relief in this show, which is great. But I find that Angel Dust is one of the top characters that act as comedic relief in the show. His cheekiness and playfulness often act as a counterpoint to the more serious moments in the plot in the show. So a character I can recommend that also shares this cheeky style and attitude would be Jace Herondale from the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. Jace often responds to serious questions with flippant remarks. He uses sarcasm a lot, uses sarcasm to make light of a lot of situations. He will make inappropriate jokes just to shock others or just because he finds them funny. And most of his jokes often center around his own attractiveness and good looks, which is similar to Angel Dust, because Angel Dust, when he makes a lot of his cheeky remarks, it often has to do with his desirability, because that is his livelihood, and that is, in a way, all Angel Dust knows. And in the case of Jace, you do learn as you read that the way he jokes, the way he is cheeky, is a defense mechanism. It is a way to keep people at a distance. And as you read, you will find out why. I don't want to spoil too much. Jace Herondale is also playful, and you see that in how he speaks to those he cares about. He's playful with them by teasing them, giving them nicknames, bantering with them. His sister-like figure, Isabel, he often teases her about her lack of cooking skills. His parabatai, Alec, he often makes fun of and teases how stoic Alec is, because that's definitely not how Jace is. They're total opposites in that respect. But he grew up with them, he trusts them, so he's open to being playful with them. He feels safe enough to be playful with them. And out of all the characters, he acts the most as comedic relief, I would say, if not one of the top characters. Because again, most of his jokes are attempts to make light of serious situations or dangerous situations. I'd also recommend Wendell Bamblebee from the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series by Heather Fawcett. Wendell hardly ever takes anything seriously, even in life-threatening situations, even if he is moments away from a sword to the gut. He is very playful when he speaks with others, but mostly playful when he speaks with Emily, because almost every time he says anything to Emily, it is to flirt or to banter with her. And he is definitely the comedic relief of the series, because for every serious comment made, he has an unserious remark back. And I cannot go almost any video without recommending Bender, the character I cosplay as the most, as you may have seen on this channel when I post some of my cosplays. Bender also has a cheeky attitude and style about him. Bender takes almost nothing seriously. And if he does take something seriously, it's for a very short period of time when he's interested in it. And then when he gets over it, he doesn't take it seriously anymore. And the thing he takes the least seriously is his job as a delivery bot, which is probably the most entertaining thing he could take unseriously, considering he does his job every day. He is very playful in the fact that he performs pranks constantly. He likes to poke fun at everybody and anything around him. It's actually very liberating to watch him because he disregards every social norm in his pursuit of a good time. For Bender, it's more important he has a good time than respect any expectation of him in his life. He's a character that pursues true freedom, no matter the consequences. And in Futurama, he's maybe the strongest comedic relief, but he's definitely one of, because every character has moments of comedic relief in this series, which is another reason why it's so great. His physical comedy rivals Fry's. I think they're pretty on par for the physical comedy. Bender has lots of over-the-top reactions, which is always funny to watch. His laugh is contagious. He has many witty remarks, and often those witty remarks are, again, at very serious moments. So it doesn't allow the plot to take itself too seriously. It doesn't allow characters to take themselves too seriously. Bender's basically he's the trickster archetype. And I think that's one reason I like him so much. Another reason I like Angel Dust is because he has powerful moments of vulnerability, but not just that. His moment of vulnerability becomes one of the most powerful moments of the entire series, and it changes everything for the character in that moment, and it even changes the plot in that moment. That's how powerful the act of vulnerability was for a character on themselves and the series. Those are one of my favorite things to happen ever in a plot and for a character. They're probably the scenes I remember the most in any book I read, in any show I watch, is when a character finally can admit to themselves and others what they're really feeling, what they're really thinking, and it changes their life in some way. It liberates them in some way. For Angel Dust, his vulnerable moment was about halfway through the first season. I think it was episode 4. And that's when he confides in Husk about his traumatic past of being sexually, emotionally, mentally, verbally abused by his hell boss, his underworld boss guy that he is in servitude, basically a slave for, in perpetuity. I don't know how long his contract is, but Angel Dust's life does not belong to himself as of right now in the series. One thing that's important to note is he did not become vulnerable with Husk right away. They had to build a relationship, and Husk had to prove he was a safe space for Angel Dust first. Because I do agree, being vulnerable with anybody and everything is not recommended. It's not safe, and it won't have the desired result. It's important when you're vulnerable, you do it with people you trust and places you trust when you are ready. And that's what we see with Angel Dust in this series. Angel Dust even remarks how he doesn't like how he's taken advantage of and how he didn't ask for any of it. He admits that his addictions, his vices of drugs and sex are his coping mechanisms and a way for him to escape the pain of his reality. He also admits that his flirtatiousness is a way to protect himself because it helps him mask his insecurities, presenting this overly confident front when really he doesn't think too highly of himself. He also, and this one hit me, he also says that part of the reason he partakes in his addictions so hard is because he has a hope in the back of his mind that he will become so broken that Valentino, his boss guy that has a contract over him and owns him in hell, hopes that he'll be so broken Valentino won't want him anymore. So he's hoping by going so hard on his vices will break him enough that he will get some freedom, that he will become free in at least that sense, but not free in so many other ways. And his song Poison is my favorite song in the entire series. I think it shows everything he admitted to Husk, but through words and actions in the music video style that the song was portrayed. It gives examples of the types of abuse he experiences from Valentino and others in Valentino's employ, and it shows the various ways Angel Dust attempts to cope with all of that. So some characters I can recommend that also had a very powerful moment of vulnerability in their book. And when that moment of vulnerability happened, it changed everything for the character and it changed everything for the plot. The first one's going to be Connor from A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. It's my favorite book on grief. The main character, Connor, is dealing with his mom slowly dying of cancer. He has hope, but also recognizes it's been a very long battle and his mom's still very, very sick. His father has moved on with a new family in America, and he's still in England with his mother and grandmother. He powerfully, violently resists being vulnerable. I think he fears the powerful emotions that he will be forced to feel when being vulnerable, because that is part of vulnerability, is experiencing the powerful emotions and thoughts going on inside of you so that you can let them out. He is visited by a monster periodically throughout the story, and the monster's job is trying to get Connor to be vulnerable. So his vulnerability is literally the point of the plot. That is the goal of the entire story. And then it takes to the very end of the story, after the monster has shared 3 of his own stories to Connor. It is now Connor's job to share his own story with the monster. And he resists and resists until the monster forces him to. And once he admits his hidden truth he's been denying for so long, he's finally able to process his mother's situation and start on a path of fully feeling and eventually healing. I'd also recommend the boy character from the book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. It's almost in between a children's book and a graphic novel, but I guess it's technically more picture book. But again, this is an example of a book where the point of the plot and the story was for a character to be vulnerable. The entire plot is the boy, the main character, practicing vulnerability with these other characters. Some examples of his vulnerability is being open enough and humble enough to listen to advice from the horse, from the mole, from the fox, and internalizing that for his own life. And part of his vulnerability is him sharing his own fears, his own hopes, his own weaknesses in an attempt to find ways to keep moving forward in life and finding out who he is and who he wants to be. And every time he practices vulnerability, we see him building stronger and closer connections with these other characters. I'd also recommend Emma from Just From the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Her character practices small moments of vulnerability throughout the story, but it's very clear and very obvious she is not fully admitting to herself and others what she really is feeling. And it is building and building and building on her and weighing and weighing and weighing on her, especially when it comes to her mother. She's had a very tough relationship with her entire life. The emotional and mental trauma she experienced from being raised by her mother and the way her mother attempted to raise her is slowly creeping up on her more and more in this book. She will admit small things to her best friend and her love interest, but again, it's really obvious she's not going deep enough, and therefore the pain is building inside of her until close to the end, when we have this powerful moment of vulnerability that changes everything for her character, changes everything for the plot, where she finally, unfortunately, burns right out, breaks right down. Her body forces her to acknowledge the pain she's feeling. And so after processing what she's going on physically, giving her a time to breathe, she goes back to her best friend and her love interest, admits she's not doing well, admits all the areas she needs to work on and needs to heal, and decides that it's best that she spends time on herself. She makes the call to put herself first with no timeline in order to prioritize her own healing. And that's it. This is a really long video, but I have a lot to say. when it comes to my favorite characters. I like doing these videos mainly in the scripting phase because even I realized some things about my favorite characters that I never took enough time to think about. My love for them goes deeper than I even realized. I'm going to end the video with the same question. I really want to know if any of these books stood out to you. I want to know what recommendations people tend to be taking the most. I tend to recommend a lot of the same books, but that's because I want to recommend books I've rated 4 or 5 stars, because I don't want you to just read a book because a 2-star book had a good character. I want you to read a book because the character was amazing and the whole plot of the book was amazing. If you can let me know any book that you might be taking as a recommendation, please do. And with that, I'm going to end this video. And me and Angel Dust say we'll see you in the next video.